morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now, as we've all heard, Josh Brolin came oh so close to playing Batman, only to have the role snatched from him at the last moment in a bout of studio politics as Kevin Tsujihara worked to secure Ben Affleck's loyalty to the studio by giving him the role. So Brolin was sent packing after being so close to superstardom. But it looks like he might get a pretty nifty consolation prize, and that's a role in Jurassic Park 4. Now, I stand by my initial analysis that Josh Brolin is a risky choice because he doesn't bring in any box office. He's very respected as an actor, both by critics and I feel that the fanboy contingent, but mainstream audiences just don't want to pay to see him. However, nobody knew who Sam Neill was for the first Jurassic Park, and Laura Dern certainly wasn't a big name, and that didn't hurt it because it's such a great concept and at this point such a great franchise. So I think for Brolin to get to the next level, to be a box office draw, he kind of has to go the Christian Bale route. And when you think of it, he kind of is like, he is following the career trajectory of Christian Bale. And he needs to land one of these big franchises to get him into the next level of movie stardom. And that way, just like people now see Christian Bale in a movie and go, hey, look, it's Batman, they'll look at Josh Brolin in a movie after Jurassic Park and go, it's the guy from Jurassic Park. So I'm actually rooting for him for this. Also because it's always nice, while I don't know how great a Batman he would have been, I do also respect him as an actor, and I think it's always nice when franchises cast good, quality talent instead of the flavor of the month. I'm looking at you, Transformers. So anyway, good news for Brolin. However, there is, of course, an asterisk, and that is that Bryce Dallas Howard is already set to star in Jurassic Park 4, and I don't know, no matter how great the franchise is, I don't know if it can handle, counteract that level of box office poison. Because while Brolin has artistic street cred, as I said, I think Bryce Dallas Howard has been pretty much rejected at every level, and at this point really is only acting because her father is Ron Howard. I think she doesn't make a big impression in any of the roles she's in, and she's had a number of chances. I mean, she was in, Spider-Man as the first Gwen Stacy, and, everybody that was a huge level of rejection. Even more so than Kirsten Dunst in the role of Mary Jane Watson. So I don't know, I think that I don't understand whoever's casting Jurassic Park 4. They almost seem to be going out of their way to really make the franchise prove that it can counteract the worst box office reputations. So Josh Brolin, good idea, but paired with Bryce Dallas Howard, perhaps too much for even dinosaurs to overcome. So that's what I think. That's my concern about the film. But, just Josh Brolin, maybe get Sam Neill and Laura Dern back in there. They're both still around. And I would just be super pleased with that. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story is that Olivier Dahan, who is the director of Grace of Monaco, is very publicly fighting with Harvey Weinstein. Well, actually, I wouldn't call it fighting because Harvey Weinstein isn't fighting back because he knows that he can crush Dahan, and probably will after the comments that he just said publicly. Basically, Dahan was talking to the press, and they said, well, how do you feel about Grace of Monaco being pushed to the spring? Because Harvey Weinstein says it isn't ready. Well, Dahan, very much the French artistic filmmaker, stuck to his guns and said, that's a bunch of crap, the movie's totally ready, it's the movie that I want to release, it's artistically perfect, but Harvey Weinstein is butchering it for political reasons, awards, strategy, and monetary reasons. To which I would counter, well, you've just described the movie business, Dahan. You shouldn't get it. You shouldn't be making movies that are released in major theaters that are commercial contenders. If just make movies that only want to be released in museums. If you're going into the Hollywood game, this is what you're doing. And I don't know how he doesn't know who Harvey Weinstein is. I mean, this is what he signed on for. But Dahan didn't just stop there, saying that Weinstein's version was crap and his was brilliant. But he said that if he didn't go along with it, Weinstein was basically blackmailing him and really threatening him a lot, which I totally believe. But, Harvey Weinstein has a responsibility to his reputation and to his investors and to his business. And I'm really shocked at this Dahan's unwillingness to play ball. And I would suspect after these kind of comments, I would be surprised if anybody in Hollywood would work with him again, because it's really not appropriate to air your dirty laundry in public like this, especially if you don't know how it's going to turn out. He might if the movie totally bombs and everyone's like, wow, that Olivier Dahan is a hack, then he can come out and be like, wait, it's not my fault. But to do this before, Harvey knows what he's doing. Harvey Weinstein, this isn't like some, novice, studio executive whose dad runs the place, who's, bothering you. It's Harvey frickin' Weinstein. So it's funny to see somebody implode like this. Harvey Weinstein obviously will win. And at this point, I don't know. I think Harvey Weinstein obviously has some responsibility to Nicole Kidman, but I think he'd be tempted to just bury this film at this point. It's pretty bad. But right now, the Weinstein Company is not commenting. All right, so speaking of war, Legendary Pictures is readying an Art of War movie, Sun Tzu's military strategy novel, which of course is iconic and not only read by people in the military, but people in business read it. It's just really a classic. I think that's brilliant. I think Legendary continues to show a really good understanding of the fanboy demographic. They did a wonderful job with the DC films. I mean, I have my problems with it, but you can't argue. Dark Knight is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I think overall they were very good. I think Pacific Rim definitely, even though not a huge financial success, struck the right nerve, and I think they're going to get things right with Godzilla, which has the most heat for 2014 right now, which is fascinating. So I think that Art of War, if they do it correctly, is really another smart move, and then they're doing the Warcraft movie too. I think Legendary is really catering to that fanboy niche and doing a good job. However, I wish they'd do a better job hiring their writers. My problems with Pacific Rim and The Dark Knight Rises and Man of Steel are all from the scripts. And now for Art of War, they've hired, hold on, I wrote it down, Alex Litvak, who wrote Predators and The Three Musketeers. It's like, why would you even consider him? As soon as you saw his resume, you should stick it in the shredder. And also, to have a novel that's so well written, adapted by a writer who's so untalented, is really kind of ironic and cruel. So I would just say, Legendary, you've got all the right ideas, your development department is genius, but whoever's hiring your screenwriters needs to go. So that's the third story of the day. The question comes from Handsome Rob, and he says, "Hi Grace, you talk a lot about movies aiming for box office draws rather than long-term acclaim." Yes, that's true. As part of the demographic that can only afford 1 or 2 movies a year, college student, I naturally save my money for the big summer blockbusters. Do you think there are enough people like me that it's actually influencing Hollywood's crowd pleaser trend, or are the winds of change blowing higher than that? Great question, Handsome Rob. I think that you are totally affecting Hollywood. Hollywood's only making blockbusters right now. That's the new strategy. Every small film that you see is largely made independently, and then they get a studio to pick it up and distribute it. They make their money, they get investors, and they also sell the rights overseas for these smaller films. But studios are only doing tentpole movies because they realize that people like you are only going to see those types of films in theaters, because I think television viewing has gotten so good, screens are such high quality and of great size, and people, I think, genuinely enjoy watching movies at home better because the theater experience is really severely lacking at this point, that they're only going to pay that money to go to the theater, which is also very high price at this point, if they feel a screen, they need the supersized screen. They need that supersized screen that you just can't get at home. You need the IMAX, for instance, I guess. And that's totally changing the way Hollywood thinks. However, look at a movie like Gravity. But I guess that also is like a blockbuster, because it has the blockbuster sentimentality. And all the, the blockbuster checklist. But I have to say, I think that if they were making really great smaller films, like I think both Inglourious Basterds and Django Unchained were really good, maybe that wouldn't be the case. I think it again boils down to quality, and when you take quality out of the equation, in terms of script, then people are just they're going to judge movies by special effects and spectacle, and then you only need the big screen. But just because you're affecting the way Hollywood acts, I'm not saying I don't think you should go and see smaller movies just to see them. I think the best thing you can do is save your money, Handsome Rob, for movies that you just think are good. And apply the same rules to the blockbuster. If you don't think a blockbuster is going to be good, watch it at home. There are a number of blockbusters that I've sat through that I've been like, you know what? That was a lot of hype with no delivery. So I would say I think the audience, and I talked about this a little bit in my review of the latest episode of The Legend of Korra, Beginnings, which everyone should watch. It's one of the best things ever made, live action or animation. But I think that if we start judging things less on spectacle or things like that, and instead we judge it on quality, we'll win in the end. It's, we talk about Hollywood having a short-term versus a long-term plan. I think audiences need to have a long-term plan as opposed to the short-term one that we have right now. So that's my thoughts today on Morning Movie News. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll comment on all today's stories and also what you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.